Hi, everyone. This is Rich Berliner from Digital Locations, and I'm here today with Jian from Colorado State University. And Jian, welcome. I appreciate you being here with us today. And what I wanted to try and talk about is you are a very established and well-regarded person in the satellite business from the standpoint of positioning and timing. Which is something that in our research on satellite to mobile, we're very interested in also. So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about that today and just cover the areas that are of interest to you that might have overlap with our research. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. And so, yeah. And so I'm actually a scientist working for the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. I'm an adjunct faculty for Colorado State University. So that's about me. And I do a lot of research on positioning and timing. And before I worked for UCAR, University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, I also worked for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and also the National Geodetic Survey under NOAA. So I do, when I worked for NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, I worked in the time and frequency division, and basically we generated the US standard time, and we also do incorporate optical clocks into the microwave clock ensembles and to generate a better US standard time. And when I worked for National Geodetic Survey, I basically estimated the GNSS satellite clock offsets, and that is very critical for global positioning. And yeah, so now I'm mainly work on the clock estimation at UCAR, and also work a lot on thermospheric density, so that we can predict the satellite orbit, and yeah, and also work a little bit on the precise satellite orbit determination. And so yeah,
what's your educational background? What's your schooling? Where did you go?
Right. Yeah, I got my PhD degree from the University of Colorado at Boulder, and my major is physics. But actually, when I was pursuing my PhD degree, my research area is GPS timing. So, and that's a interdisciplinary area between physics and aerospace engineering. So,
gotcha. So why is this an important topic from the standpoint of making sure that we can communicate with satellites, we know where the satellites are, and we have the timing from an orbital standpoint? Tell us a little bit about why this all matters.
Oh, yeah. So basically, when we do the positioning, when we use GNSS positioning or whatever positioning you are using, we need to know the time delay when we send a signal to somewhere, right? And then they respond, they have an echo, right? And we can determine the time delay, and then we can know the distance between us and the remote object, right? So similarly for GPS navigation, we are also GPS satellites have the atomic clocks on board, and they have very precise time, and then they send signal to our ground receiver or the LEO satellite. LEO satellite can also receive GPS satellite signal, and then based on that signal, and we determine our time delay. And then if we have multiple GPS satellites, then we can solve for the unknown variables of X, Y, Z, and the time offset of our local object, right? So then, once we get X, Y, Z coordinates, then we know where we are. So that's the reason why timing is very critical in navigation, and it's probably the most important component in on GPS satellites.
Yeah. Right. So what you're talking about is sort of, I guess, triangulation to be able to figure out
right. Exactly.
Right. So you mentioned GSS, which is to me geostationary orbit. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking
about? GNSS is a global navigation satellite system. It includes United States GPS, Russia's GLONASS, Europeans Galileo, and China's Beidou, and also Japan's QZSS and India's their own navigation system. It's a kind of the whole name for the field, right? So
I get you. So we are focused mostly on LEO satellites. Is this topic as important for LEO satellites as it is for MEO and GEO satellites?
Yep, it is important for nowadays. LEO satellites or GEO satellites, usually they have onboard GNSS receivers. So onboard GPS receivers, so that they receive the signals from GNSS satellites, and then they can determine the time delays, right? And then determine the distance between the LEO satellite and each GNSS satellite. And then based on this distance, you can determine where you are, where the LEO satellite would be, right? And also the same principle for a geostationary satellite.
Got it. So it seems like, there are two or three issues here. One of the things that's being worked on right now is short messaging. And obviously short messaging, the time delay really doesn't matter if it's, the message is going up and it's being relayed back. And then if you're looking at phone calls, it seems like phone call timing would be much more important from the delay standpoint. What we're working on primarily is high-speed data, so that if you're looking to download, say, a Netflix movie, if that movie comes to you a millisecond late or 2 milliseconds late, it really doesn't matter as much. So can you talk to us about the difficulties involved in figuring that and getting high-speed data potentially to an individual mobile phone without a middle device of any kind?
Yeah, I think for high-speed communication, probably you will do forward error correction, FEC, and if you have a wide bandwidth, you probably prefer better clock synchronization, because otherwise you may need to do more forward error correction, and that will make you lose some bandwidth. So the clock synchronization is critical if you really care about bandwidth and you don't want to, you want to make full use of your bandwidth, then it's important. But other than that, I think probably it's not that critical. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about a lot about bandwidth and choosing what frequencies might be the best to use for high-speed data, plus also the possibility of using frequency hopping and other techniques to make sure that the signal will be received and transmitted. So there are a lot of hard problems, we know, but that's why we're doing research. We're working with the folks at Florida International University, FIU in Miami. And so they've been great to work with. So any other sort of advice or suggestions that you would pass along in terms of our research here in being able to do this high-speed data, mostly focused on things like Netflix and gaming downloads? What would your advice be in terms of your expertise?
Yeah, from my perspective, probably you may have a distributed system. Do you have that? Or if you have that, you have multiple computers and then you want to synchronize, right? So otherwise you may, if you have high-speed transmission, you may lose some data, and that can probably you can have like a GNSS receiver for each server or computer, and then they can be well synchronized, and when they communicate with each other, you may save some bandwidth, you know. And,
yeah, we're looking at doing this directly to your mobile phone. You know, we think that there's a lot of challenges to getting to that, but without the multiple computers, but doing this directly to a mobile phone by improving the integrated circuits in the phone, by working on antennas on both sides of the equation. So, but that's an interesting approach that you're looking at in terms of sort of earthbound triangulation, it sounds like, with multiple computers. But
yeah,
John, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It's very interesting to get a perspective from someone who's working on, you know, really hard problems in space from you. And I thank you for being here. We've been talking with Jian Yao from Colorado State University. And again, thank you for being here. Thank you all for watching today.
yeah. Thank you, Rich. Bye-bye.